They found him on a dusty evening, just as the sun was slipping behind the hills. The road was almost empty, only the sound of wind brushing dry leaves and the slow creak of a wooden cart. The boy sat by the roadside, knees pulled to his chest, clothes torn and too big for his thin body. His feet were bare, cracked by heat and hunger. He could not have been more than 7. He didn't cry. He only watched. When Anthony Joe saw him, something tightened in his chest. "Slow down," Anthony said to the driver of the cart. His wife, Sylvia, frowned immediately. "For what?" Anthony stepped down and walked toward the boy. "Where are your parents?" The boy shook his head. "Do you have a home?" Another shake. Sylvia folded her arms. "We can't carry every problem we meet on the road, Anthony. Let the village handle him." But Anthony was already kneeling. He removed his scarf and wrapped it gently around the boy's shoulders. "What's your name?" he asked. The boy hesitated, then whispered, "I don't remember." That was the moment Anthony Joe decided. They took him home that night. Anthony announced it plainly. "He'll stay with us." Sylvia's silence was sharp. She didn't argue, not then. But her eyes told another story. Their children, Philip and Skylar, stared at the boy with curiosity that slowly turned into something colder. At first, Anthony treated the boy like his own. He bought him sandals. He taught him how to read. He sat with him in the evenings and told stories of courage and honesty. "You are not less than anyone," Anthony would say. "Never believe that." The boy listened. He learned fast. But inside that same house, another lesson was being taught. Sylvia never raised her voice. She didn't need to. The boy ate after everyone else. He slept closer to the door. Mistakes were punished more harshly. Silence became his shield. Philip learned early that blaming the orphan brought no consequences. Skylar followed. "Why is he even here?" Sylvia once said within earshot. "He's not ours." Anthony argued with her in private. "A child is a child." "He will grow and turn against us," she replied coldly. "Just wait." The boy heard more than they thought, and he remembered everything. When the boy turned 12, something went missing. Money Sylvia had hidden. She accused him immediately. The house filled with shouting. Neighbors gathered. Philip stood quietly behind his mother. Skylar avoided eye contact. The boy said nothing. He simply looked at Anthony. Anthony searched the house himself. He found the money in Philip's bag. Silence fell. Sylvia laughed lightly. "Children make mistakes." Anthony said nothing, but something broke inside him. That night, the boy lay awake staring at the ceiling. That was the night he learned. Love does not always protect you. Sometimes, it only teaches you how to survive. Years passed. The boy grew taller, stronger, quieter. Anthony taught him skills, trade, discipline, patience. He pushed him toward education even when Sylvia resisted. "Why waste resources on him?" she asked. "Because he deserves a chance," Anthony replied. And the boy used that chance. He left the house early each morning, returned late, worked harder than anyone his age. People noticed. Opportunities followed, but envy also followed. By the time the boy became a young man, his name was known beyond the village. He helped others. He spoke with wisdom. He carried himself with calm authority. And suddenly the house that once rejected him wanted his shadow. Sylvia smiled differently now. Philip asked favors. Skylar spoke gently. But the boy remembered. Every skipped meal, every false accusation, every night he felt invisible. Still, he said nothing. Not yet. Because real power does not rush, it waits. Power has a way of revealing intentions. When the young man, once the boy no one claimed, returned to the village after many years away, he did not come with noise or pride. He came quietly, dressed simply, riding in a modest vehicle that drew little attention. But people noticed anyway. They noticed how strangers greeted him with respect. They noticed how elders stood when he spoke. They noticed how problems seemed to soften when he arrived. Whispers followed him like shadows. "That's Anthony Joe's orphan." "No, that's the man they talk about in the city." "Is it true he advises leaders now?" Inside the old house, tension thickened the air. Sylvia watched from the doorway as he stepped onto the familiar compound. Her heart raced, not with joy but with fear carefully disguised as pride. "You've done well," she said, forcing a smile. He bowed slightly. You raised me under this roof. The words were polite. They were not forgiving. Not long after his return, Anthony Joe fell ill. The strong man who once shielded him now lay weak, breath shallow, eyes tired, but still kind. The young man sat beside him for hours. I worried for you, Anthony whispered, that this house would break you. It didn't, the young man replied softly. It shaped me. Anthony smiled faintly. Then I did something right. Sylvia stood at the door, watching the scene with unease. She realized something then. Anthony's love had survived. Her cruelty had not been forgotten. One night, Philip came to him quietly. You should be careful, Philip said. Mother thinks you're a threat. The young man studied him calmly. Have I ever harmed you? Philip said nothing. Fear grows when truth stands nearby, the young man continued. Tell her she has nothing to fear, if she has nothing to hide. Philip left shaken. Sylvia, however, did not rest. She began to speak to people, to twist old stories, to rewrite history. She would say, we struggled for him, we suffered for him. But the village remembered differently. And truth, once awake, does not sleep again. When Anthony Joe passed away peacefully, the village gathered in numbers never seen before. Leaders arrived, workers arrived. People Anthony had helped through the young man arrived. Sylvia stood stunned. She had expected control. She met exposure. When asked to speak, the young man stepped forward. He spoke not of pain, but of growth. Not of revenge, but of responsibility. A man is not measured by where he started, he said, but by what he chooses to build after surviving. Eyes filled with tears, Sylvia felt something collapse inside her, not publicly, but deeply. After the burial, Sylvia approached him privately. You could destroy us, she said. You have the power. He looked at her for a long moment. Yes, he replied calmly. I could. Her breath caught. But I won't. She stared, confused. Because I am not what you feared, he continued, and I will not become what hurt me. That night he left the house again, this time not as a boy escaping pain, but as a man choosing peace. Yet the story is far from over, because influence attracts enemies. Old wounds invite new tests, and sometimes forgiveness is challenged by betrayal from unexpected places.